Hey there, you looking kinda cute. Don't forget to subscribe and check out my other socials for more. Enjoy. For years, he had dreamed of an opportunity like this, a chance to fully embrace his feminine side in public without fear of judgment or recognition. The invitation to this costume party had been unexpected, but so very welcome. When his friends suggested he come as a maid, it felt like fate. Now here he was, tottering slightly in kitten heels, ready to step into a new world for one magical evening. He took a deep breath and rang the doorbell. The door swung open to reveal his friend Mark dressed as a pirate, complete with eye patch and plastic parrot on his shoulder. "Well, ahoy there, me beauty," Mark exclaimed with an exaggerated wink. "Shiver me timbers, but ye be the prettiest wench to grace these shores." "Oh, stop it, you scoundrel," he replied in a softly pitched voice, giving a little curtsy. "A lady of refinement such as myself would never consort with a lowly buccaneer." Mark grinned and ushered him inside. "Seriously, though, you look amazing. I never would have recognized you. Come on in and mingle. There are drinks and snacks in the living room." Stepping into the warmly lit foyer, he felt a flutter of nerves mixed with excitement. The house was filled with costumed revelers, superheroes, movie characters, and all manner of fantastical beings. Music and laughter drifted from the other rooms. For a moment, he hesitated, suddenly unsure. What if someone saw through his disguise? What if he couldn't pull this off? But then a couple dressed as Romeo and Juliet passed by, smiling warmly at him. "Your costume is darling!" Juliet exclaimed. "Did you make it yourself?" He nodded, relaxing a bit. "Oh, yes, I've always loved sewing. It was such fun putting this together." "Well, you did a marvelous job," Romeo added. "Very authentic looking." As they moved on, he felt a surge of confidence. He could do this. For tonight, he wasn't a grieving widower or a middle-aged man with a secret. He was simply a maid at a party, free to be whoever he wanted. Making his way into the living room, he saw his hostess Jenny by the refreshment table. She was dressed as Wonder Woman. Her athletic build suited perfectly to the costume. "There you are," Jenny called out. "I was starting to worry you wouldn't make it. You look fabulous." "Thank you, miss," he replied with another little curtsy. "Might I freshen your drink?" Jenny laughed delightedly. "Oh, you're really getting into character. I love it, and yes, please, I'd love a refill." As he carefully poured more punch into her glass, Jenny leaned in conspiratorially. "I have to say, I wasn't sure how you'd feel about dressing up like this. I know the past year has been so hard for you since Maria passed, but I'm really glad you came. It's good to see you out and smiling again." He felt a pang at the mention of his late wife, but it was softened by the warmth of Jenny's words. "I appreciate that. Maria always encouraged me to be myself. I think she'd be happy to see me here tonight." Jenny squeezed his arm affectionately. "I'm sure she would be. Now go mingle and have fun and stay in character. I want to see how many people you can fool." With a grin and a nod, he turned to survey the room. Guests were clustered in small groups, chatting and laughing. A game of charades was underway in one corner. By the fireplace, a group was engaged in an animated discussion about the latest superhero movie. Taking a deep breath, he decided to dive in. Picking up a tray of hors d'oeuvres, he began circulating through the room. "Canapé, sir?" he offered to a man dressed as Sherlock Holmes. "Why, thank you, my good woman," Holmes replied in a posh accent. "I say, you're quite the authentic touch for this soirée. Tell me, how long have you been in service?" "Oh, many years now," he improvised. "I started as a scullery maid when I was just a girl and worked my way up through the ranks." "Fascinating," exclaimed a nearby Marie Antoinette. "You simply must tell us more about life below stairs. I've always been curious about how the other half lives." For the next half hour, he regaled the small group that had gathered with tales of fictional adventures in service, irate cooks, demanding ladies of the house, secret romances among the staff. He was surprised by how easily the stories flowed, drawing on half-remembered period dramas and his own imagination. As the evening progressed, he he found himself relaxing more and more into his role. He topped up drinks, passed out snacks, and chatted easily with guests. Many complimented him on his costume and his commitment to staying in character. A few even tried to guess which catering company he worked for, certain he must be a professional. At one point, he excused himself to use the restroom. As he was washing his hands, he caught sight of himself in the mirror and paused. The face looking back at him was both familiar and strange. The wig's auburn curls framed his features softly. Mascara and eyeliner made his eyes look larger, more expressive. A dusting of blush gave his cheeks a rosy glow. For a moment, he felt a surge of guilt. What would people think if they knew? But then he remembered Maria's words from long ago. Life's too short to deny who you are. Be true to yourself, my love. Straightening his shoulders, he smoothed his skirt and rejoined the party with renewed confidence. As he emerged from the hallway, he nearly collided with a tall man dressed as a Roman centurion. "Oh, I do beg your pardon," he exclaimed. "How clumsy of me!" The centurion steadied him with a hand on his arm. "No harm done, my dear, though I must say you've made me spill my drink. Perhaps you could make it up to me with a dance." He hesitated for a moment, heart racing. But the man's smile was kind, his eyes twinkling with good humor. Why not? This was a night for new experiences, after all. "I'd be delighted, sir," he replied with a shy smile. "Though I'm afraid I'm not much of a dancer."
"Nonsense, I'm sure you're as light on your feet as you are on the eyes,"
the centurion said gallantly, leading him to where other couples were swaying to a slow song. As they moved together, he marveled at how natural it felt to be held in another man's arms. The centurion was a good dancer, guiding him smoothly across the floor. They chatted easily about the party, the other costumes, the music. For those few minutes, he felt truly seen and appreciated as the woman he was pretending to be. When the song ended, the centurion bowed over his hand. "Thank you for the dance, my lady. I hope we'll have the chance for another before the night is through." Flushed and a little giddy, he made his way back to the refreshment table. Jenny was there, grinning broadly. "Having fun?" she asked. "I saw you dancing with Marcus. He's single, you know. Should I give him your number?" He laughed, shaking his head. "I'm flattered, but I don't think that would work out quite how he's expecting." Jenny's eyes widened. "Oh my God, he totally bought it. He had no idea it was you?" "Apparently not," he replied, still a little amazed himself. "I have to admit, it's been rather thrilling fooling everyone like this." "Well, you certainly fooled me at first," came a deep voice behind him. He turned to see the centurion, Marcus, standing there with an amused expression. "I realized who you were during our dance. You may have everyone else convinced, but I'd recognize those eyes anywhere, old friend." For a moment, he felt a stab of panic, but Marcus was smiling warmly, no judgment in his gaze. "I hope I didn't make you uncomfortable," Marcus continued. "I just wanted you to know that you pulled it off brilliantly, and if you ever want to talk, well, let's just say I understand more than you might think." With a wink, Marcus moved off into the crowd, leaving him stunned but oddly comforted. Jenny squeezed his arm. "See, I told you everyone would be supportive. Now, come on, it's time for the costume contest." The rest of the evening passed in a whirl of laughter and conversation. To his amazement, he won second place in the costume contest, beaten only by an incredibly elaborate steampunk cyborg. As the party wound down, he found himself feeling a mix of elation and wistfulness. For a few magical hours, he had been able to fully embrace a part of himself he usually kept hidden. As the last guests trickled out, he helped Jenny and Mark start the cleanup process. "You don't have to do that," Jenny protested as he gathered empty glasses. "You're a guest." "Nonsense," he replied. "What kind of maid would I be if I left you with all this mess? Besides, it's the least I can do to thank you for such a wonderful evening." Mark clapped him on the shoulder. "Well, we're glad you came. It's good to see you getting out and having fun again. Listen,
We're hosting a more formal dinner party next weekend for some of Jenny's work colleagues. Any chance you'd want to reprise your role? We could actually use the help, and you did such a great job tonight." He hesitated for a moment, torn between excitement at the prospect and fear of pushing his luck. But the memory of how freeing the evening had been made the decision for him.
"I'd be delighted," he said with a smile. "Just let me know the details and I'll be there with bells on. Well, maybe not actual bells. That might be a bit much for a formal dinner." Jenny hugged him tightly. "You're the best. And hey, if you want to develop this persona a bit more, I'd be happy to help. We could come up with a backstory, maybe even a name." As they continued cleaning, the three friends began brainstorming ideas. By the time he left for home in the early hours of the morning, the foundations had been laid for his new alter ego. Carolyn, a refined and efficient household manager with years of experience in service to wealthy families. Driving home, still in his costume, he felt a sense of anticipation building. This could be the start of something new and wonderful, a chance to explore a side of himself he'd long kept hidden. As he pulled into his driveway, he caught sight of his reflection in the rearview mirror and smiled. "Well, Carolyn," he murmured, "I think this is the beginning of a beautiful friendship." The week leading up to the dinner party passed in a flurry of preparation. Jenny was true to her word, helping him refine Carolyn's backstory and mannerisms. They spent hours practicing proper etiquette, discussing the finer points of formal service, and even working on Carolyn's accent, a soft, cultured tone with just a hint of Northern English roots. He threw himself into the role with enthusiasm, researching everything from wine pairings to the correct way to address various dignitaries. In the evenings, he practiced walking in heels, perfecting his makeup technique and styling his wig. Each small improvement filled him with a sense of accomplishment and rightness. As the day of the party approached, he found himself both nervous and exhilarated. This would be different from the costume party, a more intimate setting with guests who would expect impeccable service. But he was determined to rise to the challenge. On the afternoon of the party, he arrived at Jenny and Mark's house early to help with the setup. He had taken extra care with his appearance, choosing a classic black dress with a crisp white apron, nude stockings, and sensible yet elegant low heels. His makeup was subtle but flawless, enhancing his features without being obvious. Jenny greeted him at the door with a warm hug. "You look amazing! I almost didn't recognize you." "Come on in. We've got lots to do before the guests arrive." For the next few hours, they worked together to transform the house. The dining room table was set with fine china and crystal, each place setting meticulously arranged. Flowers were artfully displayed throughout the house, their delicate scent mingling with the aroma of roasting meat from the kitchen. As the hour of the party drew near, Jenny pulled him aside. "Remember, some of these people can be a bit demanding. Don't let them rattle you. Just stay calm and professional. And if you need a break, just let me know." He nodded, smoothing down his apron. "Don't worry, I've got this. Carolyn has dealt with far more challenging guests in her time." Jenny grinned. "I love how you refer to her in the third person. You really have created a whole persona, haven't you?" Before he could reply, the doorbell rang. Showtime. As the guests began to arrive, he slipped effortlessly into his role. He took coats, offered drinks, and circulated with trays of canapés. His voice was soft and deferential, his movements graceful and efficient. The guests were a mix of Jenny's colleagues from her law firm and their spouses. Most barely seemed to notice him beyond accepting the drinks and hors d'oeuvres he offered. But a few were more observant. One woman, introduced as the firm's senior partner, fixed him with a piercing gaze as he topped up her wine glass. "You have excellent form," she remarked. "Where did you train?" Without missing a beat, he launched into the backstory he and Jenny had crafted. "I was fortunate enough to begin my career in service at Chatsworth House, madam. The housekeeper there took me under her wing and taught me everything she knew." The woman nodded approvingly. "Impressive. It's rare to find staff with proper training these days.
Jenny and Mark are lucky to have found you." As the evening progressed, he found himself enjoying the challenge of anticipating needs before they were expressed, of moving smoothly and unobtrusively through the room. There was a certain power in being invisible, yet indispensable. During dinner, he worked in tandem with Jenny to ensure each course was served flawlessly. He took pride in presenting each dish with a flourish, describing the ingredients and preparation in mouth-watering detail. Between courses, he overheard snatches of conversation, legal jargon, office gossip, discussions of recent cases. It was a world so different from his own, yet he found it fascinating. He filed away bits of information, building a mental picture of the dynamics at play among the guests. As he was clearing the dessert plates, he noticed one guest, a junior partner named David, looking somewhat worse for wear. The man's face was flushed, his movements uncoordinated. Clearly, he had overindulged in the excellent wine. Without drawing attention, he approached Jenny and murmured, "Pardon me, madam, but I believe Mr. David may require some assistance.
Perhaps some coffee and a quiet moment in the study?" Jenny glanced over and nodded gratefully. "Excellent idea, Carolyn. Please see to it." With gentle efficiency, he guided the inebriated man away from the table. In the study, he settled David on the couch and brought him a strong cup of coffee. "Here you are, sir," he said softly. "This should help clear your head. Just rest here for a bit, and I'll check on you shortly." David looked up at him blearily.
"You're very kind," he slurred. "Don't know what I'd do without you. You're like an angel, a serving angel." He suppressed a smile. "That's very flattering, sir. Now drink your coffee and try to relax." As he turned to leave, David caught his hand. "Wait, what's your name again?" "Carolyn, sir." David nodded solemnly. "Carolyn. Beautiful name for a beautiful lady. You know, if you ever get tired of working for Jenny and Mark." He gently extricated his hand. "That's very kind of you, sir, but I'm quite happy in my current position. Now, please drink your coffee. I'll be back to check on you soon." Returning to the dining room, he caught Jenny's eye and gave a small nod. Crisis averted, for now at least. As the evening wound down, he helped see the guests off, retrieving coats and calling taxis as needed. When the last guest had departed, he began the process of cleaning up, moving efficiently through the rooms. Jenny and Mark collapsed onto the sofa, looking exhausted but pleased. "That went even better than I hoped," Jenny said. "You were absolutely amazing. I don't know how we would have managed without you." He smiled, continuing to gather glasses onto a tray. "I'm glad I could be of assistance. I must say I rather enjoyed myself." Mark chuckled. "Well, you could have fooled me, and you did fool everyone else. I don't think a single person realized you weren't a professional." "About that," Jenny said, sitting up straighter, "I got a lot of compliments on you tonight. A few people even asked if you were available for their own events. I was thinking, if you're interested, maybe we could actually make this a real thing." He paused, heart racing. "What do you mean?" Jenny leaned forward excitedly. "Well, I have a lot of connections through the firm. I could easily send some work your way. Dinner parties, cocktail hours, that sort of thing. You'd be paid, of course. And it would give you a chance to, well, be Carolyn more often, if that's something you'd want." For a moment, he was speechless. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. To have more opportunities to embrace this part of himself, to refine and develop Carolyn's persona, but also to take the risk of being discovered. But then he thought of how natural it had felt tonight, how right. He thought of Maria's words about being true to himself, and he made his decision. "I think I'd like that very much," he said softly. "Thank you, Jenny, for everything." Jenny beamed at him. "No, thank you. Now, why don't you go get changed and we'll open a bottle of wine to celebrate? I think we've all earned it." As he headed to the guest room where he'd left his regular clothes, he caught sight of himself in a mirror. Carolyn looked back at him, poised and confident.
He smiled at his reflection, feeling a sense of peace and possibility he hadn't experienced in a long time. This was just the beginning, he realized. A new chapter in his life was opening up, full of potential and self-discovery, and he couldn't wait to see where it would lead. Over the next few months, Carolyn became a regular fixture at high-end events throughout the city. Jenny's connections proved invaluable, and word of mouth soon had Carolyn's services in high demand. From intimate dinner parties to large corporate gatherings, she quickly gained a reputation for impeccable service and unflappable poise. With each event, he grew more comfortable in Carolyn's skin. The nervousness that had plagued him at first faded, replaced by a quiet confidence. He found himself looking forward to these opportunities to step out of his everyday life and into a world of refinement and elegance. Of course, maintaining the double life wasn't without its challenges. There were close calls, like the time he ran into a colleague from his day job while working a charity gala. But Carolyn's composure never wavered, and he managed to serve the man canapés and champagne without being recognized. As Carolyn's reputation grew, so did the complexity of the events he was asked to manage. He found himself coordinating teams of servers, planning menus, and troubleshooting last-minute crises. It was demanding work, but he thrived on the challenge. One particularly memorable evening came when he was hired to oversee a diplomatic dinner at the city's most exclusive hotel. The guest list included ambassadors, business tycoons, and even a minor European royal. The pressure was immense, but Carolyn rose to the occasion magnificently. As he moved through the glittering crowd, ensuring everything ran smoothly, he caught snippets of fascinating conversations. World-changing decisions were being discussed over expertly prepared courses and fine wines, and he was there, invisible yet indispensable, making it all possible. At one point during the evening, he found himself alone in the kitchen with the hotel's head chef, a notoriously temperamental man. To his surprise, the chef actually smiled at him. "You know," the chef said, "I've worked with a lot of event coordinators over the years, but you're something special. The way you run things, it's like a perfectly choreographed dance. I don't know where Jenny found you, but I'm glad she did." The compliment warmed him, reinforcing his growing sense that this wasn't just a hobby or an escape. It was a genuine talent, a calling even. As the months passed, he found that his experiences as Carolyn were beginning to influence his day-to-day life as well. He stood a little taller, spoke with more confidence. The skills he'd developed, multitasking, crisis management, reading people, proved surprisingly applicable in his regular job. More than that, the joy he found in being Carolyn seemed to spill over into other areas of his life. He felt more comfortable in his own skin, more at peace with himself. The grief over Maria's loss was still there, but it was softened now by a sense of purpose and self-discovery. Of course, there were still moments of doubt. Late at night, he sometimes wondered what Maria would think if she could see him now. But then he'd remember her encouragement, her insistence that he be true to himself. In a way, he felt closer to her now than he had since her passing. Nearly a year after that first costume party, he found himself back at Jenny and Mark's house for another gathering. But this time, he wasn't there, as a guest or even as hired help. He was there as a friend, finally ready to share his journey with the people who had unknowingly set him on this path. As he sat in their living room, Carolyn's wig and dress carefully packed away, he took a deep breath and began to tell his story. He spoke of his lifelong struggle with his identity, of Maria's support and understanding. He told them about the freedom he'd found in becoming Carolyn, the confidence and joy it had brought him. Jenny and Mark listened with rapt attention, their faces showing surprise, understanding, and ultimately, deep affection. When he finished speaking, there was a moment of silence. Then Jenny reached out and took his hand. "Thank you for trusting us with this," she said softly. "I'm so happy that we could play a part in your journey. And I want you to know that we love you, all of you. Whether you're Carolyn or not, you're our friend and we support you completely." Mark nodded in agreement. "Absolutely. And hey, next time we have a party, you get to choose whether you want to come as a guest or work it as Carolyn. Your call." He felt tears welling up, overwhelmed by their acceptance and support. "Thank you," he managed to say. "You have no idea how much that means to me." Thanks for watching. Don't forget to check out my other socials if you want more wonderful content, early access, behind the scenes, and more. All links down below.